This episode of the Trek Geeks podcast is brought to you by Discovering Trek, a Star Trek Discovery companion. Break down each week's brand new episode of the 6th live-action Star Trek series with us every Monday during the season. To subscribe on your iPhone, Android, or other device, visit our website at discoveringtrek.com.
Hi, this is Nana Visitor, Major Kira Nerys from Deep Space Nine, and you are listening to the biggest little show this side of the Gamma Quadrant, the Trek Geeks podcast with Bill Smith and Dan Davidson.
Hey everyone, Dan from Trek Geeks here. This week's planned episode of Trek Geeks is being postponed for the week. Bill is dealing with a horrible cold, a sore throat, and a huge case of laryngitis. Now, normally I would consider not having to listen to Bill as a blessing in disguise, but I jest, of course. We wish Bill a speedy recovery so we can hear his mellifluous tones back on these Trek airwaves just as soon as possible. We'll be back next week with episode 117 of Trek Geeks, and it's gonna be great. It's See It or Skip It for TNG Season 6 with the wonderful and talented Ashley Victoria Robinson from Red Shirt Diaries. Until then, our good friend Brian Wilkins from TrekNews.net was recently at New York Comic Con and recorded this amazing panel discussion with the cast of Star Trek Discovery. We hope you enjoyed this special supplemental episode. We'll see you next week. And hey, live long and prosper.
Feel free to step up to the mic and fire away.
Hi, I'll take the first hit. We haven't seen too much of the show, obviously, but I'm already a fan of Captain Lorca.
Me too.
First mistake.
So, for Mr. Isaacs, and for anyone who would like to jump in, the thing that sort of captures me about Lorca is that he is so definitely a wartime captain. There's no bugs about it, as opposed to a peacetime captain during this tense time. And so when you prepare to create a person like that, given what you're given and with the secrecy that surrounds Star Trek and things coming, how do you create, how much of a backstory do they give you? How much of a backstory do you create on your own to create somebody who's sort of this hard to define that the public has yet to see? And Mr. Isaacs, obviously I would like you to answer that, but for anyone else.
How did anyone else create my backstory?
Absolutely.
So they had a lot of ideas, and there was a discussion about his backstory, everyone else's backstory. One of the joys of telling a story over 15 hours is you don't have to do what traditionally network pilots do, where everybody tells each other their life story as soon as they meet, even if they've known each other for decades. So the richness and fullness of these people's lives will be revealed, including who Lorca is and why Lorca is, and what's happened to him. But then the other thing is, the challenge with war is to be, and with acting, is to be in the moment, and he needs to win the war because people are trying to kill us and everybody in the Federation, and everybody lives on every planet the Federation looks after. So I need to get my head around how you do that surrounded by the wrong kind of people on the wrong kind of ship. And one of the things that I came up with, the first episode I did, Cuba directed, was I didn't want to sit in the chair. I was jonesing. I wanted to get out there. I wanted to engage people in combat. I stood in front of the screen and in the little office that was designed for the first time when I came along, because there were no scenes in there before, I wanted to stand up at the desk. I wanted to be looking out of the windows a lot because I just wanted to get at it. I was frustrated being behind the battle lines. And so you can bring some things to it as an actor, and mostly what you do is take everything that's been written and all the framework that's been built by the writers, and the work of acting, which so few people apart from people inside the bubble understand, is not to learn the lines and go do the things that are said in the script. It's to create the 99% of things going on in your head that are not then said and done. And the things that help you most are a great story, storytellers, and believe it or not, sets, and mostly the other actors. If you look in their eyes and they're really good, it does most of the work for you, and I was pretty blessed in that as well.
And the blue eyes were my idea. So you're welcome.
Yep. The British accent was mine.
This question is for Nikola. Can you talk about the challenges as an actress from going from being a member of an ensemble to being now like the face of the ensemble and really kind of like the lead of an iconic franchise? And if your work on Walking Dead in any way prepared you for this?
Thank you for your question. 1,000 trillion, quadrillion%. My time and work on Walking Dead for sure prepared me. I feel that all roads have led me here, but I feel that that's the case with everyone. I feel that all of our roads have led us here, right, in this moment together. But it was very much a stepping stone for me. It was very much a time of preparation. I was on the show for 5 years, and so it was very much a postgraduate degree. That's the way I like to look at it. I learned an incredible amount about what it is to be an actor, to be a professional. I learned so much about just being a woman, a wife, a mother, a friend, an artist that is a part of a whole. And I give so much respect and love to all of those people that will always be a part of me and my heart and my journey. And so to be on that Goliath of a show that means so much to so many people, I feel that it was just the perfect experience to sort of like jump off into this. It was a trampoline into this, because now I have the honor and privilege and blessing to be on the ground. I came into Walking Dead when it was already, what it is. It was already established. It was this big, gigantic thing. But to be on the ground and to already know, to have intimate understanding of an environment that is truly collaborative, familial, and where the creativity is encouraged and nurtured. I knew what that environment felt like, and I knew what it took to get it from watching my fellow actors and crew and Andrew Lincoln and everything. And so I was able to see it work, and then say, okay, wow, here's an opportunity to create it. Here's an opportunity to foster that. Here's an opportunity to sort of cultivate that. And then it has everything to do with these people and everyone else that isn't seated here, because everyone agreed. Everyone was game. Everyone was of that mindset. And so we were able to all do it together, because you can't do it if you don't do it together.
Hi. This question's for the
Is that Klingon?
It's not.
What do you say?
I can't say.
This question's more for the producers and Sneakwa. We've sort of seen Michael's relationship with Sarek. We understand it. We're beginning to see that. But will we get insight, and can you give us insight into her relationship with Spock and his reaction to her mutiny? Because he's out there. He's doing stuff. So will we ever see that? And how does she feel about that?
Nope.
No, that's very succinct. That makes my transcription a lot easier.
You got all that. That's a great question.
With that, my question is really fast. I imagine you guys came to this project with varying levels of familiarity with Star Trek and the franchise as a whole, and I'm wondering if any of you had experiences with kind of like a crash course or boot camp in Star Trek and what that was like.
Well, I did have a relationship growing up to watching TOS like after school, and and then watching the original movies in the theater. But then when I did get the role, I did a crash course of like watching all of the stuff again. And then I'd never, all the stuff from like the late 80s, early 90s passed by entirely. I was not watching any TV then. So I missed Next Gen first time around and then did a major deep dive into Next Gen, and then also have just finally gotten to Deep Space Nine. I don't know if these guys would say this. I feel like our show really is in many ways the most DNA of our show from what's come before is a sort of a blend of the original series and Deep Space Nine. And one of the things that was continually inspiring about doing that crash course, as it were, was the level of acting. At its best was some of the best acting to me that's ever been on television. And it's, for whatever reason got so overlooked, like the fact that Patrick Stewart never was, nominated for an Emmy for his incredible work. Yeah. Leonard Nimoy, I guess he was nominated for an Emmy, right? I think he was, yeah. So at least he got some recognition, but that was really inspiring. And then just the ideas and the writing as an adult, as a kid I thought it was really cool, move space, yeah, but as an adult to see the depth and complexity of what was being talked about, and gave me just great source of inspiration moving forward. But then, it is a new iteration of it that's standing on the shoulders of what's come before, but really is trying some, I think, entirely new and brave things with what's come before as well.
Mary, you spoke earlier about learning Klingon and the language aspect. I was wondering if you yourself, or in consultation with the producers and the writers, dug what you did to dig into Klingon culture, and both in terms of this show itself, but what had come before it, to sort of use that to bring that to L'Rell as well as the Klingons at all.
Well, luckily that kind of also feeds into the previous question. For me, my crash course was, I have talked about my introduction was thanks to Alex. I saw the 2009 movie, and that kind of got me excited about the franchise. And then I had gone back and watched a lot of the original series and loved it then, and I've always loved sci-fi in general. Then I went, once I got the role, and I did watch all the Klingon-centric episodes, because there's a lovely comprehensive list on the Star Trek Wikia page. And so that was, once from the time getting the role to, I think I got it, I think I completed it just as we were starting rehearsals in January. And that really informed me. I did have an eye on the female Klingons and their representation, and I'm really proud of how we have paid homage to what the women have been in the past, but we've really, created, like we're saying, a new version that is in the vein of the themes that we've seen. I keep referencing, actually, a character that really resonated with me was Grilka in Deep Space Nine, because it's a real poignant kind of storyline of a woman who cannot succeed her husband's house because she's a woman. And she has to go to Quark to, get her own house? Come on, a Ferengi? So and then ultimately, though, through her intelligence and her perseverance, she does end up, and the help of Quark, he did help, she becomes the leader of her own house. And so that sort of theme, and I do think what's fun about the Klingons is they allow the women to be very strong. They are innately strong women, but they still do live within this patriarchal species. And I feel like I'm really excited to see how you guys perceive L'Rell's relationship within this very patriarchal Klingon species. And I'm really thrilled with how we have incorporated that in her story. I'm very, very humbled by it. So,
hello, I'm Short.
Hi, Short.
My name is Tatiana King-Jones, and I just wanted to first thank you guys for making a damn exciting Star Trek show, okay? I'm a huge Star Trek fan since Next Generation, and it's really hard to get people involved. They're like, oh, it's too slow. No, this is fast. Now, this is fast. This is great. So my question is, particularly the fact that this show tells a lot from the viewpoint of the Klingons. And as progressive as Star Trek is, it happens to have a bit of a problem with dealing with the viewpoint of the other. So you guys, I think, are trying to speak from that side. So, and anyone can answer this, but what are your thoughts on the fact that a lot of the story comes from the viewpoint of Klingons?
Can I say something? Yeah. I just want to, because I think the most, in reading the scripts, the thing that was most moving to me was the fact that we really were looking at the perspective of the story through the eyes of the Klingon. We really got to understand why they feel the way that they feel. And it really speaks to the times that we're living in. It's so easy for us to look at someone we're in an adversarial situation with and make them one-dimensional in order to justify how we feel. And we forget to see each other within each other. And I think that's what we're trying to do on the series is we're not so different. And perhaps we can find common ground. And maybe that really is what will save us all in the end.
I had the privilege of getting to talk to Dr. Jameson today, who I can now call Dr. J because we're besties. She told me to. We were just sort of loosely talking about the show, and you know, she said something that I feel like hasn't really been articulated as profoundly as she said it, which is that the thing about Trek, which we all assume, the borders, the boundaries that divide us are gone in the Trek universe. You know, it isn't just an ideal that we want to hold ourselves to and aspire to. It is essential to the survival of our species. That if we don't understand that we, by the way, you should be talking, not me, because you said it today. But if we don't embrace this as a philosophy, we are not going to be on this planet for much longer. And as she said it so poetically, you know, the dinosaurs thought they had it made too. And so we have to embrace this Trek philosophy as a means, not just as a means of survival. And I think when you think about the Klingons, and you think about the idea of war, and you think about why wars happen and what divides us, the whole season arc is about asking the question of who we are and what we give up of ourselves and where we are going as a species. And we ask it, the Klingons ask it, and it's an exploration of that very fundamental question that Dr. Jameson so poetically said is sort of our lifeblood.
Thank you.
I had a question for the cast. I wanted to say that there's a very rich legacy and history that goes along with 51 years of Star Trek. And in researching that, were there any characters or actors or episodes or performances in particular that informed the characters that you're now playing on Discovery?
I already said that.
I'll say one thing. I did go back and look at all the doctors. I'm not. And what I loved about them was that they were the living, breathing heart of the show. They were the, what's the word? The heart. If Leonard Nimoy was the brain and Kirk was.
The arm.
The brawn. Then McCoy was the heart, and so I really wanted to infuse him with as much of that sensibility as possible. And the same could be said about Dr. Crusher. And, so anyone else?
I would say just know the opposite. I mean, it's not that I didn't love and watch and love those the original series at least, but that I had no desire to be a pale shadow of any of the brilliant stuff I'd seen before me. So everything for me was constructed backwards to not be like anybody I'd seen on Star Trek before.
I mean, definitely the Vulcans. I mean, that's where I grew up. You know what I'm saying? Leonard, for sure. And this is gonna sound really lame, you guys, but it's true. I really am inspired and informed by these actors. And by the other actors on our show. Not by him. He doesn't inspire me at all. But of course he does. But yeah, honestly, because I feel that everyone is really, they've jumped off the cliff and they're going wherever the story leads them. And so I see the story reflected back to me in their eyes, which is what you said actually earlier. And so the world becomes so very alive because of who we have, and then it's these people too writing it out of their hearts. So it's just a lot of heart exchange, and I've been informed the most by.
Thank you.
Y'all having more fun than I am. I'm gonna ask. Right. Well, I'm Jeff. I'm Jeff, first of all. You had the problem too, John. All right, so my questions are along the lines of continuity, so anybody can answer. A couple of things I was thinking. So the show is supposed to occur about 10 years before the original series. This age of having continuity with cinematic universes versus TV, we know that the original series in the movies was rebooted. So that original timeline rebooted to a new timeline. So my question is, which original series is the timeline 10 years before? Is it that universe or the Kirk TV universe? And secondly, in terms of, thank you very much for...
Do you have the internet? Just because you have access to broadband. Because they've answered that about 100 times.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't just ask it. But secondly, I want to thank you for having putting all the money into the tech for Star Trek, because it's 3 episodes in. It's one of the most, if not the most beautiful Star Trek I've seen visually. But along with that, you can get some type of continuity. It's like because you have so much technology within it, and you show the advances, you can run into some issues. Like, for example, one of the episodes, I believe there was site-to-site transport on the ship, and I'm thinking to myself, they had trouble with that back in the day.
Scotty did do it though. Scotty did do it back in the day.
So my question, he did, but it seemed a little bit more effortless. Maybe Discovery was ahead of their time.
Discovery's brand new. The Enterprise has been flying around for how many years at this point?
Right.
Enterprise is kind of old at this point. Brand new off the assembly line.
So in general, just in terms of, even with the history of the different characters, how do you balance putting your all into it visually and just having it live up to 21st century standards while following the 24th and the 22nd and 23rd continuity?
I love how engaged you are in the show. Honestly, I mean, I feel like when we all went out to work, when we all started to want to sit down and do the show, we want people to lean in and have the kind of experience that you're having watching the show. It's making you think, it's making you go back. We are a TV show, and our canon is the television series. And also, as far as stuff like site to site, it's so interesting you bring that up, because in the writer's room we talked about it a lot, and we knew it was a controversial thing. And we just made the decision that on this ship, you can do it. But if you don't waste it, and since Lorca's a different kind of captain, he does it, and other captains might not do, because there are dangers involved. So, and I think there's another question, and I'm sorry.
I have a question about the timeline. So just to...
Akiva will take this one.
So
Microphone, Akiva. Microphone.
We are non-Kelvin. These guys created the Kelvin timeline, which is a reboot of the original timeline, right? So that what happens is through, you know it. So it affords you the opportunity to retell narrative, to retell pieces of narrative that you might think you know, but you know them differently. We are not part of that timeline. We are the original timeline. So as Gretchen said, we're the TV shows and the movies that fit into that. We are 10 years before the original series. What Anthony just said about where Constitution class ships are in comparison to where this Discovery prototype, or one of 2 prototypes, now one of 1 prototype, might be technologically, is obviously it's a variant. We are wildly aware of everything that appears to be a deviation from canon. We will close out each of those issues before we arrive at the 10-year period that when we close out our 10-year period and hit TOS. There is a tradition in Star Trek of attempting to use modern storytelling, visual techniques, props, visual effects, etc., to contemporize the original feeling that was generated by the props, the sets, and the visual effects of the time. Even within the original series, and then certainly in Next Gen, we've seen ourselves go back and update, right? So even digitally, we went back in and made the planets look better, and the ships, just pure opportunity, right? So fundamentally, it's subject to interpretation. How far is too far? But what we're trying to do is remain true to the technology that was available there, but represent it with the technology we have now. And that's a little bit our guiding principle. And we kind of are pretty good holding to it, even when we see something unbelievably cool that we wish we could do. And so that's our outcome goal, is not to get away from the original spirit of it, but to try to do it with the tools that are available now.
Well, thank God we don't have to watch tech that's made up of old cereal boxes, empty toilet rolls, and a gaunt that's like those people that blow outside a garage. And, I think that a modern audience, and by the way, it's not just made, to my mind, but it's not just made for the Trekkies and all the fantastic community out there. It's for all the new people who've never seen it before or heard. And they want to see great stories with great tech, and so they should have it. By the way, like they said, it's a nominal ship, the DeLorean possibly of its day, whatever it is, the ship, and the fact that you don't see it 10 years later on a different show is completely consistent in my mind. Sorry.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to make a comment on the discussion. One of the questions I've been asked is, why do I like Star Trek? Why would I be here? Why do I think it's such a special show? It's because of this discussion. So, for example, the science is front and center, and everybody can get into the details, and that's what allows people to submerge themselves. That's what allows one to have the Prime Directive come out as something that's within popular culture. Those are the kinds of things that make a show have the kind of longevity. But it's not just because it has cool things to say, it's because it touches people. And the other thing I would say is that there is an opportunity then also to teach a lot, even within the sciences, right? So as the sciences are good and consistent, it makes people want to learn more. And so I think that that's part of the power of what Star Trek has done, and I really salute you all for being able to continue that right now.
We have time for one more question.
You sure?
Yeah, sure.
We got time for 2 more questions.
Ask your
No pressure.
Yeah, this is for the producers and anybody, honestly. You talked a little bit in the panel about the relationship between Michael and Philippa and the importance of that dynamic. Can you talk about any of the other relationships between female characters? I don't necessarily want to say friendships, because I think friendship and conflict all...
We've got
Yeah,
right here. I'm going to say also, take it back right here, because what was great about seeing the Georgiou and Burnham relationship, where Georgiou was such a wonderful mentor, this is now happening again here between these two, between cadet and former first officer, and it's it's paying it forward, and it's taking the lessons that you've learned. And what I also love about Philly is that she's got a couple of things of her own that she's teaching back to you. So, and that is, the friendship it's a two-way street, and I think that's awesome. It's not just sit down, Tilly, I'm going to tell you what's going on. It's a two-way street.
And Mary is a firework, you guys. It's true. She's just sensational.
Well, I was going to say to that, not to jump on your fireworks statement, but there's a lot of times on our side where, you're casting forever and then someone walks in and you're like, oh, finally, that person's the role. And Tilly was always someone that came out of the mind of the two of them who we loved on paper. And this one, it's so much more than, I'm so excited for all of you to see her because she's brought so much more to what that character was on the page, and it's just like such a joy to watch.
Thank you so much. I don't know. I'm gonna start crying. I don't want to make it like a butt kissing conversation. I'm like very, very new to this situation. I've never had a role this size on this kind of franchise before, and Tilly, her whole world is opening up. She's so green, and she's on this new ship that is like the ship for science, and is exactly where she wants to be. And then she comes into contact with this woman who is strong, who is warm, who is empathetic, and she kind of blows her mind, and she is in a place of pure possibility right now. And I feel like that too, as a person. To have Sonequa as like she may not be the captain of the ship, but she's the captain of this freaking show. Like, she is a mother and like a sister and a friend to all of us. And I feel that way about, all the women behind the scenes also. Just, we all, the stories that you will see on screen reverberate backwards and between us all. And it's really special to get to be here for that.
Does that justify the drum violence?
All right, last question.
How do I follow that? I just had a quick question then, I guess, for the cast. I'm wondering, in your interaction so far with the fans, how that relationship has been compared to something like The Walking Dead or Harry Potter or My So-Called Life, which
It's been really interesting. I mean, the fans are so engaged, which is really gratifying. And I've seen a tremendous amount of happiness among the fan community that Star Trek is back. And then there are people who get a little ornery about certain aspects and grumpy or skeptical. And what I've continued to ask people, and most people have said, okay, I will, is to give it a chance, to keep going, to let it, trust that we are aware of these things. That it's, yes, we've never heard of Michael's relationship with Spock before. Trust us that this will somehow reverberate in ways you don't necessarily expect. You know, it is gratifying to encounter the level of passionate engagement.
And I just want to add that for anyone, if there's anybody out there, and I know there are a couple because we all are on Twitter, who doubts how much love there is for this story, for this franchise, tomorrow night, much will be explained, and there's nothing but love up here for Star Trek.
Well, I would say I've been acting for 30 years, and I have never seen this kind of fan activity before something ever even came out in my life.
Yeah.
And I've never seen arguments break out like they do for this show. And the Twitter feeds, oh my gosh, we're tagged in all of it. I keep putting out messages, please untag us before you continue this argument. But they don't. What I can actually appreciate about the arguing back and forth is that the fan base, they love having ownership of it, and I know more than you do about this, that we have a product that they want to know more than everybody else about it. That's a great product to be a part of.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I was just going to say, obviously I've had a different experience with the Harry Potter thing because everybody read the books and loved, there was not a single dissenting voice. Everybody loved the books, loved the films, and there wasn't at the time, at least in social media, the kind of criticism. This is a different world, the Star Trek world. They're adults who've chosen to rather revere this and protect this, I think, as adults. And it's mostly, well, I've experienced at least through all the social media stuff, which is how you encounter it, mostly just love and excitement and fabulously positive things. And then there's the people who, genuine fans, who are skeptical or don't want to pay or are particularly obsessed with technical things that, you know, that it's not my business to tell them, don't worry, that believe me, they're tearing each other's eyes out in the writer's room about matters of canon as well. Don't ever think they don't care about it. They've got an explanation and you may or may not be satisfied by it. Those people are very welcome. We're thrilled that they're arguing about it, they're upset, angry, or they love it. Any of that stuff is fine. There's also a bunch of people who are upset that there's a woman lead, or that there's women of colour lead, or that there's a diverse platform. We've got a bunch of people from every gender and sexuality and stuff. And those people can go fuck themselves. Occasionally just for fun because I'm bored and I probably should go to sleep early and have my chocolate. I just get involved with the troll stuff, and I've been trying to counsel Anthony to do what I don't do, which is click on their timeline, because if they're white supremacists and they're sitting there with a pillowcase on, I probably shouldn't try and persuade them. But in fact, they are the people I wish would watch the show, because we wish that they would love each other and us and the rest of the planet and every other type of person the way we all think. That sentence was going so well today. What I was going to say, are those people, those kind of, whose timelines are just full of race hatred and kind of reactionary stuff and wanting to call us all kinds of names that they think hurt, but actually would celebrate the labels they give us. I wish they would watch the show because it's more aimed at them than anybody else.
Thank you guys. Oh,
yes.
I want to say something.
That's so good.
Sorry, darling. Take the bridge.
No, take the bridge. No, I was just gonna talk. The collective storytelling experience is something that that I've had experience with. That we are family, all of us up here, and all of these fireworks, everybody, every single one of them. And so we then all become a family around the campfire, sharing the story. Those of us telling it and those of us seeing it. And so I have loved feeling the transition from where I come from to this
is the family of Star Trek. That's why we're here.
Thank you guys so much for
Thank you.